Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a topic that, let's be honest, causes a lot of anxiety in the workplace: getting fired. Whether you're an employee worried about your rights or an employer trying to do the right thing, we're going to break down the rules in Malaysia so you know exactly where you stand. So let's start with a classic scenario. You're late again. Can your boss actually fire you for that? It's a question that probably hits close to home for a lot of us. Well, the answer isn't a simple yes or no, but stick with me because by the end of this, you'll see why the details really matter. Okay, this right here, this is the absolute cornerstone of Malaysian employment law. You can't be let go just because your boss is in a bad mood. This phrase, just cause or excuse, acts like a shield for employees and a very clear rulebook for employers. Right, first things first, we have to get the language right. What's a fair dismissal versus an unfair one? To understand your rights, you've got to know the key terms, because in the eyes of the law, how your job ends makes all the difference in the world. It's actually pretty simple when you break it down. A direct dismissal is that classic "you're fired" moment, but constructive dismissal, that one's a bit different. It's when the company makes your work life so impossible, maybe they slash your pay for no good reason or demote you unfairly, that you feel like you have no choice but to quit. So even though you're the one resigning, the law might see it as the company pushing you out the door. And here's where it gets really interesting. The burden of proof is on the employer. This is a huge deal. It means if you ever challenge your dismissal in court, you don't have to prove it was unfair. Your employer has to prove they had a legitimate, solid reason to let you go. So what counts as a legitimate reason? Well, here are some of the big ones. We're talking about serious stuff like theft or fraud, but also ongoing issues like poor performance or, yep, there it is, constantly being late. Redundancy is also a fair reason, which is basically when the business restructures and your specific role just isn't needed anymore. Okay, I need you to lean in for this next part, because this is probably the most important thing you'll take away from this whole explainer. Even if an employer has a perfectly good reason to fire someone, the way they do it is just as important. This is the aha moment that so many people miss. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? Think about it. You could have an employee who was caught red-handed doing something wrong, but if the company messes up the termination process, that dismissal can still be ruled as unfair. The procedure, you see, is absolutely everything. So, the law has a name for this fair process. It's called a due inquiry. You can think of it like a mini investigation inside the company. The whole point is to make sure the employee gets a fair shake, a chance to hear the accusations and tell their side of the story. It's all about basic fairness. So what does this fair process actually look like? Well, it usually follows these steps. The company has to investigate, then give the employee a formal letter, a show cause letter, asking them to explain themselves. Then they have to give them time to respond, hold a hearing, and make a fair decision based on the facts. And the final crucial step, document everything. Skipping even one of these can get an employer into a world of legal trouble. Just understanding that the process is king is the key insight that can save everyone a lot of trouble. If this breakdown is giving you a clearer picture, do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. That way, you'll always stay ahead on Malaysia's biggest issues. So, what happens if an employer messes up? What are the consequences if a dismissal is found to be unfair? Let's take a look at the stakes, because they can be pretty high. For the employee, the clock starts ticking immediately. You have a very strict 60-day window from the day you're dismissed to file a complaint with the Industrial Relations Department. If you miss that deadline, that's it. You've lost your chance to challenge it. Now, the case doesn't just jump straight into a big courtroom battle. The first step is mediation, where they try to help you and your former employer reach a settlement. But if you can't agree, then the case gets bumped up to the industrial court for a formal hearing. So if the court agrees with the employee, there are a few things it can order. First, reinstatement, getting your job back. To be honest, this is pretty rare, mainly because the working relationship is usually toast by that point. What's more common is money, compensation based on how long you work there, and back wages to cover the salary you lost. But there is a limit on those back wages. For a confirmed employee, it's capped at 24 months of your last drawn salary. And if you were still on probation, that cap is lower, at 12 months. This keeps the awards fair and reasonable. Okay, so we've seen all the rules and what happens when they're broken. For our last section, let's talk about how to get it right from the start. Here's the playbook for avoiding these kinds of disputes in the first place. For employers, the big secret is this: termination should never be your first move. It should be the absolute last resort. Great management is all about tackling problems early, giving employees support, and trying every other option before even thinking about letting someone go. Frankly, it's not just legally smarter, it's just better for business. For instance, if a company is going through a tough time and thinking about layoffs, there are so many other things to try first. You can look at reorganizing, moving people into new roles, or investing in training them for new skills. And with an employee's permission, you can even explore temporary measures like reduced hours to help save jobs. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to be part of a community that's all about clarity, not confusion, then join thousands of other Malaysians, tap like, hit subscribe, and let's keep making sense of this all together. So we'll leave you with this one last thing to think about. Following all the legal steps we talked about is essential, of course. But does that automatically create a truly fair workplace? Or does real fairness come from something more? A culture of respect and open communication that goes way beyond just the rulebook? It's a really important question for all of us.